appreciate it. Thank you everyone for being on here today. I know we're gonna watch the video in a short while, but we're so proud of, that ad that we're putting out on digital and all the investments that the Biden-Harris campaign has been making. We've invested 7 figures in paid media, API paid media. We have over a dozen API team members across the country. We have over 14 affinity groups, state leadership councils, and most of our key API battleground states. So we're so excited for these next 11 days. And I want to give a special thank you to our affinity group chairs and our affinity group and state leadership councils. Without them, we wouldn't be where we are. We certainly wouldn't be in this regard. So want to thank you all for all the work that you've been doing over the last year, last couple of months, and thank you so much for everything. And we're really going to win it because of them these next 11 days. So I just wanted to say thank you to all of you for being here. And next, we have the special honor of introducing a special guest with us, a superhero in his own right. You may know him from Star Trek and Iron Man. With that, I want to introduce Faran Tahir.
Hi, I'm so humbled and honored to be here because I think this is such an important time in our lives right now. And I was listening to the debate last night, and the thing that really struck me was that the differences and the choices are very stark. We can go into the facts, but the difference is it's apathy versus empathy. It is disregard versus dignity. It is obfuscation versus facts. And if we look at that, if we just go through what we heard last night, although it was devoid of all the theatrics of the last debate, which I'm very glad about, because it actually made us focus on what these two men stand for and what we need in this country right now. If you look at the response on COVID, here is Mr. Trump's response, which was that we should learn to live with it. But what he's ignoring is that people are dying because of it. And there is no solution that is being put forward. You could take it, whether it was COVID or whether it was a question of healthcare or whether it was a question of immigration, where 500 kids do not have their parents, and he wants to talk about something else. He wants to always deflect and not actually address the real issue that is at hand. You can take it, to racism and justice. He talks about Black Lives Matter as that the first time I learned about them was when they were shouting, pigs in a blanket. By the same token, he also says that the first time he learned about the Proud Boys was when they talked about child molestation. So my point is that if you are the president of this country, why do you not know about these groups? Why don't you know about what they stand for? Why don't you not understand that Black Lives Matter is about dignity of human life? It is not about shouting slogans. It is about making sure that we all have equal opportunity and equal respect in this culture. So we can go through the entire debate and you will always see the difference between dignity and disregard. But I want to speak about something else. I want to speak to our community as Asian Americans. We have all come to this country. We have all made sacrifices, and we've also enjoyed success. But our sacrifices and our successes are not only tied to our pocketbook. They also come with a responsibility to the history books. And this is that time. We can talk about, we bring such beautiful diversity to this land, to this culture, which is the hyphen that we use, whether you're Filipino or a Japanese or a Chinese or a Vietnamese or a Korean or a Pakistani or an Indian or a Bangladeshi hyphen American. Yes, we bring all of that beauty and that challenge and that complement to this culture. But this is the time when we have to actually think about the other side of this hyphen, which is being Americans. We have to make sure that it is not, our success is not being, which is what the Trump side would want you to do, which is to think about that the prosperity is only defined by our pocketbooks, which, to be very honest, Mr. Trump's economy and his plan has not done much for us, to be very honest. What it has done has denigrated us, shown us disregard, shown us disrespect. If that is the case, then this is my appeal to all of us. That some will say that we are a patch in the American quilt. But what I want us to think about is to become the thread of the American fabric. That is the strength of our community. That is the strength of America. And today, what we need to do is show that we are part of the thread of the American fabric. We need to have our voices heard. We need to make sure that we all work together, regardless of what race, what creed, what culture, what religion, what language we come from. We are Americans, and that is the legacy that we need to leave for our kids, for our children. This is not just about you and me. This is about the generations to come. So I'm hoping that in true Avengers fashion, AAPI assemble, and that we put this thing at the forefront of what is important to us. Let's go out and vote. If you haven't voted, go vote. I have already done I have voted, I have sent my mail-in ballot. If you have done that, amazing. If you have not done that, please do that. Or if you have done that, go help your brother, your sister, your grandfather, your mother, your children to also vote. If that's done, go knock on the door, next door. Go there with a smile. I don't care what party they belong to, but our voices need to be heard. And that is my appeal, and that is my message to everyone. Please, please, please. We always say that every election is the most important one of our lives, but this one really is. And we have to make this difference.
Thank you so much, Faran. And if you're not aware, he is part of the Avengers series. So it is so great to hear directly from you. Everybody, this is it. It's the end game. So thank you so much. Howard has that video ready because it really ties into what you just said. So Howard.
Speaking of Avengers, this theme song is for you, Faran. Thanks so much. Okay, I'm gonna share my screen now and we'll get started.
To love our country is to fight for the ideals of our country. In this election, we have a chance to change the course of history. Let's fight with conviction. Fight with hope. Let's fight for the America we know is possible. The America we love.
Thank you so much, Howard.
Love our country.
Thank you so much, Howard. And speaking of fighting, there's no better champion of all, fighters among us. Thank you so much, Chairwoman, CAPAC Chairwoman, Congresswoman Judy Chu, for being here with us. If you could share your remarks.
Hello, I'm Congressmember Judy Chu from California's 27th District, and I'm also the chair of the Congressional Asian Pacific American Caucus in Congress, or what we call CAPAC. We are just 11 days from the election. It's been a long, difficult road, but I'm so proud of the incredibly dedicated team that's worked so hard to turn things around in this country. Aspire PAC Chair Grace Meng, DNC AAPI Caucus Chair Bel Leong-Hong, and all the great AAPI Biden affinity groups from all these different Asian ethnic groups who are showing their unity today in this press conference. Just the fact that last night Donald Trump screamed less did not make him any more acceptable. He showed that he was still xenophobic and a bully with delusions of grandeur of being like Abraham Lincoln. In contrast, Joe Biden showed Americans that he is the only candidate in this race with the experience, temperament, and leadership we need to move our country forward. Joe was so impressive as he spoke directly to the American people and showed empathy and compassion for the millions of American families who've been devastated by the coronavirus pandemic, which has left over 220,000 Americans dead and millions unemployed. Donald Trump not only did not show empathy for the devastating lives that have been lost, he went to his typical playbook to explain the virus: xenophobia. One thing is clear, he does not care a whit about AAPIs. Even though he's been told that it's led to a surge in anti-Asian hate crimes across the country, he used last night's national platform to repeatedly call this the China virus, as though it will stop people from seeing that he's done nothing to stop the virus, and in fact is perpetuating dangerous lies that we've turned the corner and COVID is going away. But his lack of empathy showed so many times. He didn't care that he separated 545 children permanently from their families. He didn't care about the contamination of families living near polluted oil fields, saying they get paid plenty. He could not bring himself to speak to the pain of Black families who have to engage in the talk. But Joe Biden showed so many times last night that he does care. And he promised last night that within 100 days, he would address an issue so important to AAPIs, immigration reform. He is just the president we need right now, a president who will fight for all of us, someone who rejects the hateful rhetoric that is too often used to divide us and believes that America's diversity is our greatest strength. And that's exactly why we must elect Joe Biden as president. And we, the AAPI community, can make the key difference. AAPIs are the fastest growing racial ethnic group in the US. We have more than doubled our voter registration numbers over the past decade. And we are the swing vote in key battleground states all across the nation. And that's why I like to say we've gone from being marginalized to being the margin of victory. With just 11 days left until the election, we have a big job to do. Let's continue working to earn every vote by engaging AAPI voters across this nation. Together, we can make sure that the best person to be elected president by far is our Joe Biden.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman Chu. You're absolutely correct. And I am sure Congresswoman Grace Meng will agree. I am proud to introduce you another fearless fighter, Congressman Meng, the DNC Vice Chair and AAPI Chair.
Thank you, Hannah, and thank you to the entire Biden team for your hard work, especially as we head into November 3rd. It's always great to be on with our wonderful CAPAC Chairwoman, our fearless leader, Judy Chu, and of course to Bel Leong-Hong, who pushes us every single day to be more inclusive and to do bigger and better. I first want to thank all our media outlet friends for being here today. It is so important to have all of you on this call, and I really want to thank you for helping to get our messages out to our community across the country. I want to say a huge thank you to all of our affinity groups. I think Hannah said there were 15 group leaders on the line today. I have been so impressed. I have met some of you throughout the country over the past few years, but the hard work, I brag about you to people in my circle and to show them how hard you have all been working in reaching our diverse AAPI communities. And finally, I want to thank the Biden team and the Kamala Harris team for making historic investments in our outreach to our AAPI community. I spoke to one Asian American media reporter, and he said that he had never seen a presidential candidate reach out in the way that the Biden team has been. So a huge thank you. Look, I agree with my chairwoman. Last night, Joe Biden won the debate. It was no question. And I'll agree with my future vice president from the last debate as well, when she said that the way that this administration has handled this coronavirus pandemic pretty much forfeits their right to re-election. This is not about Joe Biden's family or Donald Trump's family. This is about your families, every single one of our American families across the country. And our Asian American Pacific Islander community has really suffered through this coronavirus. Joe made a really good point last night that he wants to shut down the virus and not shut down the country. Trump can talk all he wants about reopening the country, but the fact is he has no plan. He has no real plan to help the country reopen, and he's never had a plan since day one. We've been having bipartisan briefings since day one in February, and there's been no national unified plan to combat this virus, and now over 200,000 Americans are dead. Trump spends more time using words like Chinese virus and Kung flu and trying to allocate blame than to actually find solutions to help us combat this virus. We don't have to live like this. We deserve better. Our community deserves better. The hatred that AAPI community has faced has also been unprecedented. The words that the president has used has literally emboldened people to discriminate and in some cases to physically attack AAPIs across the country, thousands of cases. So I wanted to be here to say thank you to all of you. Make a plan to vote. Think about how you plan to vote, and please reach out to your family members, your neighbors, people in your community who might not know exactly where and how to cast their vote, and help them to find a time to do so. AAPIs can be the margin of victory in this election. We've talked about it before, but in most battleground states, the number of eligible AAPI voters outnumber the number of votes that we lost by in 2016. So we have to vote as if our own lives depend on it. Vote for your kids, vote for your parents. Think about the first person in your family who emigrated to this country. Trump's America is not the America that our families came to this country for. We can do better, and with your vote and with your plan to vote, we can restore integrity, decency, and health to this country again. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Congressman Meng. And as you said, there's no one here who can tell all of us that AAPIs can be the margin of victory, and other than Bel, who's been through so many, who's led our community through so many elections. So I'm very proud to introduce and honored to introduce Bel Leong-Hong, the DNC AAPI Caucus Chair.
Okay, I'm muted. Thank you so much, Hannah. And thank you, Congresswoman Chu, Congresswoman Meng, and Faran. I am one of your devoted fans. I am so excited to be here today to talk to you all. And I am absolutely impressed about the number of members of the press that are on this call. And I thank you and appreciate you for being here and listening to us. I want to start by making an announcement. This is as a result of the debate last night. So let me first kind of give you a little bit of my thoughts about the debate last night as well. So what I heard was what came across loud and clear was the cluelessness of the current president about the plight of the American citizens, not just the Black, the brown, and the Asian Americans, but across the board. He is absolutely clueless about the sufferings, about the effect of COVID on the general population, about the effect of the economic effect of all of those tariffs, as well as his actions or inactions. The lack of accountability came across loud and clear, and he continues to deflect. And every time that he thinks that somebody is criticizing him, he deflects, and he uses China again as a scapegoat, and he continues to do that. And every time that he does that, our community suffers. And of course, he's not empathetic about that. By contrast, what we saw in Vice President Biden is a very empathetic leader, a very caring individual, somebody that cares about you and me, and somebody that will govern with the true values of our American democracy. I think what we saw last night is the view of a future that is very hopeful, of a future that will be very different from what we have seen these last 4 years. And with that hope, we should all go and vote. So let me then get to the exciting announcement, and that is that we will be rolling out the endorsement of 1,100 AAPI leaders in every sector of our community. We have leaders from the not only the political world, but also from the entertainment world and the business world, community activists in every single sector. And I am so very proud to tell you that we'll be rolling that out very shortly, I think within the next day or so. And all of this is because we're all energized. We're all energized to support Joe Biden and Kamala Harris for our next president and vice president of the United States. Proof of the pudding are all of the affinity group chairs that are present in this call. Without you, this could not happen, because each and every one of you that have organized and energized our individual communities to call into our own community and to other communities to go out and vote, each and every one of you has helped. And I want to thank you. I want to also reflect on the fact that, you know, I have been actively involved in politics for the last 20 years. And in all of the presidential campaigns that I've been involved in, I have never seen this kind of unity and this kind of participation by every single one of you and every single one of our community. And I want to thank Amit and Howard and Hannah and the entire Biden and Harris team, who are working very, very closely with the DNC team. And again, this is, I won't say unprecedented, but I will tell you that this is the part of the ingredient for the success that we're seeing today. So I want to also tell you that, I want to also encourage you to please continue. We only have 10 days left before the election, and every single hour now counts and actually every minute counts. So please go out and continue to energize everyone in our community to go out and vote. And those of you that have voted, thank you. Those of you that have not yet, please do. And please continue to encourage those that you call on a daily basis. Thank you again very much for having me here.
Thank you so much, Bel. And we thank, of course, you and DNC for being really the champions, our godmother, and supporting all of us who are following in your footsteps. And as Bel mentioned, everyone, that it is only as a result of all your efforts and your group's unique contributions that we can do this. And Howard, as you all know, has worked so tirelessly to help launch all your groups. So Howard will be now introducing each of your groups representative to really just share why your group and all of us, we're supporting Joe Biden. So Howard.
Hi everybody, so honored to be here with you all today. And you know, to echo Hannah's statement, it takes a village. It's been such an honor to work alongside Amit, Hannah, Bel, the entire Biden team. We are so excited that we have all of you here, and then we have basically Avengers ASSEMBLE of you all. So for Chinese Americans for Biden, we have Lynn Lua and Katrina Chan. Filipino Americans for Biden, we have Irene Bueno. Hmong Americans for Biden, we have Dua Toat. And Japanese Americans for Biden, we have Floyd Mori. Korean Americans for Biden, we have Grace Choi. Native Hawaiians and Pacific Islanders for Biden, we have Tolavu Amavoy. South Asians for Biden, we have Deepa Sharma. Pakistanis for Biden, we have Isha Yuki. Sikh Americans for Biden, we have Ikasa Suri. South Asian women for Biden, we have Nina Anand. AAPI staffers for Biden, we have Liz Lee. Taiwanese Americans for Biden, we have Amy Fan. Thai Americans for Biden, we have Jerry Robern. Queer AAPIs for Biden, we have Lonnie Ko. AAPI veterans, military families, we have Juan Palasal. Vietnamese Americans for Biden, we have Katie Calvoda. And Yas Biden, AAPI youth, we have Benjamin O. So first up, we have Chinese Americans for Biden. Oh, Ling, you're muted.
I don't know why my background is gone. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. My name is Ling Luo. I'm the founder and the chair of Chinese Americans for Biden Affinity Group. I applaud Biden's resounding victory in debate last night, showing he is the only candidate in this race who has the temperament to move us forward from this crisis. America is in great danger under the Trump administration. As a proud Chinese American, I believe we have the responsibility to make a change. Donald Trump has been shirking the responsibilities and kept labeling the pandemic Kung flu and the China virus, instead of taking action to combat the coronavirus and saving American lives. He has incited and raised discrimination and violence against the Asian community. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris were among the first to condemn the racism. They are committed to ensuring members of the AAPI community are treated with dignity. They will counter the rise in hate crimes and combat bullying directed at the AAPI community. Chinese Americans are one of the fast growing communities in the country. In this most important presidential election of our lifetime, many of us have stepped up and taken action. Chinese Americans for Biden was founded in late June with thousands of supporters and hundreds of committed volunteers from across the country, organized in full scale with 8 functional groups. Our postcard team handwrote and mailed out 50,000 postcards. Phone banking team made over 20,000 calls. Text banking sent over 200,000 messages to 6 key battleground states. Our video production team produced over 200 videos. Translation team translated over 50 articles. Writers team wrote over 250 articles and poems. Graphic team made over 150 flyers, and the finance team raised over $71,000 for this campaign. AAPIs make up at least 1 to 2% of the electorate in key battleground states, and it can be the margin of victory from being marginalized. We believe Chinese Americans and the AAPI community as a whole can truly make a difference in this election. Let's get out and vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Ling. We also have Katrina.
Hi there, everyone. Thanks for having me. Since this pandemic began, Donald Trump has tried to blame Chinese Americans and Chinese immigrants for the spread of COVID-19. In actuality, it is Trump's own failed leadership that has led to 223,000 American deaths. Trump insults people who are trying to protect themselves and the people around them by wearing masks, and he has placed a target squarely on our backs. With Trump's use of Kung flu, China flu, and China plague has incited race-motivated assaults all over the country and abuse, paranoia, and contempt from our own neighbors. A recent study by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention cite a 35% increase in Asian American deaths from when the pandemic began. Chinese Americans have been so afraid to go to the doctor, so afraid to visit the emergency room, that by the time they're seeking out treatment for COVID-19, it's too late. We are literally dying because of Trump's dog whistling and race baiting. Joe Biden would never insinuate that our community is to blame for this pandemic. Joe Biden values the contributions of Chinese Americans, and he will help us recover from this. He will help us build back better. Joe Biden will stand up for the rights and dignity of Chinese Americans and Chinese immigrants. Joe Biden will work hard to help our community regain our strength, provide the safety net we need to rebuild, and help us achieve the financial stability and economic prosperity we all deserve.
Thank you, Katrina. Next up, we have Phil Ams for Biden. Irene Bueno.
Thank you so much, Howard, and to the entire Biden team. My name is Irene Bueno, and I'm a senior advisor for the Filipino Americans for Biden-Harris. And I want to recognize the leadership of our co-chairs, Melissa Ramosa and Paul Polito. I have worked on Capitol Hill and at the White House, and I know what leadership looks like, and it does not look like what we've had under the Trump administration. As a result of this failure of leadership, Filipino American families have suffered, and Filipino American families have had enough and deserve better. We have a national problem and no national strategy with no national response. The Trump administration has failed to provide leadership at every turn during the fight on the pandemic, whether that's a lack of essential supplies for Filipino American frontline healthcare workers, or the failure to articulate a clear, consistent, rational policy on testing for the virus and the use of masks, or even ignoring the guidance offered by his very own coronavirus task force. And as a result, 8.5 million Americans have contracted COVID, and over 223,000 members of our family, our friends, and fellow citizens have died. And tragically, many Filipino American nurses have died. While Filipino American nurses make up 4% of nurses in this country, 31.5% of the nurses who have died due to COVID are Filipino. And Filipino nurses are a part of our Filipino American heritage. They are our mothers, they are my sisters, my aunties, and my cousins. And each day, thousands of Filipino nurses and healthcare workers are on the front lines, risking their lives for America and caring for patients with COVID. We honor their sacrifice this November by voting for real leadership. And that means voting for Joe Biden for president and Senator Kamala Harris for vice president. If we are to recover from these difficult times, Filipino American families deserve the confidence that the decisions are being made by a leader with both hands on the wheel. Steady leadership approaches challenges with both an open mind, strong convictions, and principles. It is also driven by passion and concern for others. All of this, which describes both Joe and Kamala. Both Joe and Kamala know the Filipino American community, its resilience, that we take pride in our families, traditions, and cultures. We respect each other and help each other, which is uniquely the core of the American story. Throughout their careers, both Joe and Kamala have demonstrated a commitment to building a united America, where everyone who is willing to work toward the common good can find a place at the table. Harry Truman once said, "In periods where there is no leadership, society stands still." Progress occurs when courageous, skillful leaders seize the opportunity to change things for the better. Joe Biden is the right man for these challenging times for president. No matter how bad things have been, how devastating the effects of Trump's failure to lead, come November, Filipino Americans will show what leadership looks like by voting for Joe Biden for president and Kamala Harris for vice president. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Irene. Next up, we have Dua with Among Americans for Biden.
Hi, everybody. I have to do a shout out to my Hmong peeps out there. So again, I'm Dua Thaw with one of the co-chairs of Hmong Americans for Biden. There's a group of 10 or 11 of us who've been really holding it down the last couple of months. And so happy to represent, but the work is really out there in the field with our communities. For those who are unaware, the Hmong are an ethnic minority from Southeast Asia. We total around 300,000 in the United States, but we're heavily represented in a lot of the swing states. And we came to this country, the majority as refugees, after supporting and fighting alongside the United States after the Vietnam War. So I'm really honored to represent and talk about all of the great work that Hmong Americans for Biden has been doing in the community. We spent the last few months phone banking, doing lit drops, engaging our communities, and we're heavily represented again in those swing states. For example, in Wisconsin, Trump won with less than 1% of the vote, and APIs represent 3% of the vote, the majority of the API population in Wisconsin being Hmong. For the last number of weeks, we've been making calls, and we literally had one elderly 70-year-old woman say after a phone bank call that she'd be willing to do a video, which she did. You can check it out on our Facebook, talking about how she supported Biden and how he has continued to embrace and support our communities in spite of all of the fear-mongering that's happening from the Trump side. So it's been super inspiring for us. And for many folks who don't know, it's a very historic level of engagement for our communities. you'll be surprised when you call a Hmong voter in Wisconsin, they literally have said, oh, I didn't even know that a presidential campaign knew that we were constituents in this country. So it's been really exciting for us to be able to engage and learn. And I myself came to this country as a refugee, when I was a little kid, and formerly also served as the executive director of the White House Initiative of AAPIs under Obama. And I will say that, only in this country can you, in the same generation, be a refugee immigrant and then serve also and engage with the White House. So I truly believe that happened because of the Democratic Party and because of the leadership at the top. And that is Joe Biden and Kamala Harris right now. So we know that there's only one candidate that really embraces all of the diversity in America, including the diversity within the API community. And as a Hmong community and a longtime advocate in the community, I'm extremely proud to have Hmong Americans for Biden engage and join this campaign and want to support Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Doa. Next up, we have Japanese Americans for Biden, Floyd Mori.
Good afternoon. It's good to be among many friends from the past and co-workers of the present. As said, I'm Floyd Mori. I'm one of the co-chairs for Japanese Americans for Biden and Harris, along with Amy Watanabe and Alex Hetherington. We have been working and gathering the Japanese American community. I myself was one of the first Japanese Americans to be elected to a state legislature on the mainland way back in the 1970s. So I've had a very long experienced time in political realms, and the Democratic Party is the one that has solved a lot of the problems that we face. Asian Americans have a long history of being victims of racial hysteria. We can go back to the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882, other exclusion acts of the early 1900s, as well as anti-land laws, other laws that excluded Asians from being full citizens in this country. Right up to World War II, when America chose to send people of Japanese ancestry, mostly citizens of this country, to concentration camps. The hearing after the war indicated that it was war hysteria, racial bias, and incompetent political leadership that caused this to happen, and that it was unjust. For the first time in the history of our country, the United States government actually apologized for what they did during World War II. My brother was not a loser or a sucker. He was a loyal and patriotic American citizen who gave his life and an education at Harvard to preserve freedom and democracy in this country, along with many thousands of other Japanese American soldiers from the mainland and Hawaii. When Japan recovered from World War II, it became an economic power. And Americans again engaged in some economic hysteria and took it out on Asian Americans. I think many of you recall the Vincent Chin case as a prime example of how racial hysteria caused pain and death to an innocent person. Post-war years saw many Asian Americans or Asians immigrate to this country. Koreans after the Korean War, Southeast Asians after the Vietnamese War, came to this country for what it stands for: freedom, liberty, and fairness. But yet, even today, as many have mentioned, the racial remarks about COVID-19 are a current day example of racial hysteria that has caused some unwarranted strain and stress on innocent people. When we look at Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, their lives and actions show us they understand the personal loss of a loved one who fought for our country. Joe showed us he's ready to solve problems and has plans to solve problems rather than pointing fingers of blame. Joe shows respect to the human being, regardless of color, regardless of religion or political party. Joe is the person, and Kamala is the person that we're, as a Japanese American community, are going to vote for on the election day. There are people we can trust, people we can count on, people who have a plan and include us in the process of being citizens. So thank you. And again, Japanese Americans will be voting for Biden and Harris, November 3rd. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Floyd. Next up, we have Vu with Native Hawaiians and Pacific Islanders for Biden.
Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon if you're not here in Pacific time. Talofa aloha, half a day. My name is Talavoa Mawai, Gawaivo for short in the community. I am personally Samoan American, but I'm truly honored and humbled to be here on behalf of the NHPIs for Biden as serving as one of the co-chairs. I'll keep it quick. I actually have a midterm in 15 minutes, so I have to hop off, but I am so happy and grateful to be among such amazing leaders. And once again, I thank the Biden-Harris campaign for having such a concerted effort to reach out to us minority groups. But with our efforts, we've been able to outreach and engage with over 100,000 Pacific Islanders within the entire nation, whether that's in the territories to the state of Hawaii, from the West Coast all the way to the East. We had an amazing kickoff event with, as the campaign surrogate that served was State Senator Kai Kahele from Hawaii, that's currently running for a U.S. House seat out of the state of Hawaii. And then we had a setup forum of a debate forum between, we had two Biden-Harris Pacific Islander supporters, and then we had two Pacific Islander Trump supporters. Thankfully, it was moderated very well. The conversation was honest. It was fact-based, and the moderators was able to at least guide and keep that with keep the conversation going without turning negative, because we know how so many of our counterparts and other people in our community that may support the right and may support the current administration can become very negatively and just throw unfactual things out there. And then most recently, our most recent big event we currently hosted was, I think 2 weekends ago, or last weekend that just passed. We had a Pacifica Women's March in honor of the Women's March of Movement. We were able to get a lot of women leaders from our community to come on and speak and engage with our community, and it's been great. So this work is certainly humbling, and it's been wonderful to see the excitement and galvanization of our NHPA community within the nation to come out and show support for Joe and Kamala. But referring to the debate last night, we even saw the blatant denial of taking responsibility for the failure and lack of action of COVID. And as the NHPA community has suffered exponentially, along with other minority groups, and have been affected by COVID-19 and has wreaked havoc. So the fact that we saw that last night very blatantly denied it once again. And Joe's response, his facial expression, was certainly very many of us throughout the nation. It was just unbelievable. And that's something that our people will not forget. And we will definitely not forget it when we're going out to the polls up until November 3rd. So it's an honor, and thank you again, everyone. Take care.
Thank you so much. And so next up, it's going to be Vietnamese Americans for Biden, Katie Calvoda. I know she has to run to a meeting, so.
Yes, hi everyone. Good to see all of you. Xin chào quý vị. My name is Katie Nguyen Calvoda, and I'm here as co-chair of the Vietnamese Americans for Biden. Our community has an unprecedented choice in this election to pick a leader who understands the great diversity of America and celebrates the vast contributions of our community, or someone who promotes white supremacy and racial division. On Wednesday this week, Vice President Joe Biden released a bilingual op-ed to Viet Bao, to Vietnamese Americans, a community of more than 2 million strong. and extolling their immense contributions to America. Joe Biden said, "I was proud to support the historic bill that brought the first 130,000 refugees from Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia in 1975. And that commitment to refugees and asylum seekers all stand as a beacon of hope and freedom. Our community, the Vietnamese American community, are war refugees or descendants of war refugees. Our families lost everything to start anew in the United States. We've given our blood, sweat, and tears to stand by the ideals of America. And these ideals that are inscribed on the Statue of Liberty that says, 'Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free.' Under the Trump administration, all of this has been changed. We have all been marginalized and victimized. Joe Biden, on the other hand, fought his entire career for immigrants, for small business owners, for hardworking men and women across this country, including so many Vietnamese Americans who are just looking for a fair shot to make a better life for our families. So to us and to all of you, there's only one choice for Vietnamese Americans in this election, and that choice is Vice President Joe Biden. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next up, we have South Asians for Biden, Deepa Sharma.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Deepa Sharma, the Communications Co-Chair for South Asians for Biden. First, we'd like to thank AAPIs for Biden for hosting this event and for everything that the campaign, including Amit, Howard, Hannah, Vaibhav, Ananya, are doing to mobilize the API community. The South Asian community is 5 million strong. We are an incredibly diverse community with no unifying language, faith, or condition. Our community is not a monolith. We hail from India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal, Bhutan, Afghanistan, and the Maldives. Some segments of our community are affluent, while others are struggling to make ends meet. We are doctors, lawyers, engineers, and business owners, but we are also essential transportation workers, small business owners, teachers, law enforcement personnel, activists, and working minimum wage jobs. And we South Asians owe our existence in America to a multitude of laws and policies. For many, it is due to acts of Congress, the H-1B visa worker program, and chain migration that allow us to be here and build a life here. But there are others who owe their presence in America to programs like the refugee program, the temporary protective status program, President Reagan's Immigration Reform and Control Act of 1986, while some 5,000 South Asians receive DACA protections and a growing segment are living in the shadows. But as diverse as we are as South Asians, we are united for electing Vice President Biden and Senator Kamala Harris. The South Asian community is moved by Vice President Biden's decency, his life story, the strength and resilience he exudes. We appreciate his honesty, his forthrightness, and his dedication to public service. And we are so moved by the fact that Senator Harris is the first Indian American and Black woman to serve as a vice presidential nominee. Senator Harris is a trailblazer who has devoted her life to justice and equality. And she knows what it's like to have a parent who's belittled and thought of as less than because of her accent. Many of us know that experience. But more than just their personal attributes, we stand with Vice President Biden and Senator Harris because they respect our immigrant community. They see our diversity as a strength, not as a weakness. They will remove President Trump's discriminatory immigration policies, including the Muslim ban and the H-1B visa freezes. They will fight to keep all communities of faith safe. This is particularly important due to the fact that the FBI indicated in a recent report that hate crimes and hate incidents against our South Asian communities are spiking. Hate crimes against Muslims in particular are the highest they have ever been since the aftermath of September 11th. In short, we support Vice President Biden and Senator Harris because we believe in their mission of restoring the soul of our nation. And I want to note that at the debate last night, President Trump derisively called China and India filthy in a tone of voice dripping with disdain. His rhetoric was insulting and it was ugly, and it reflected a worldview of a lack of respect for the places where we draw our heritage. But we are not going to stew in our anger. Indian Americans and Chinese Americans are the largest AAPI communities. Our communities will respond at the polls by resoundingly voting for Vice President Biden. Our votes matter. South Asians can be the margin of victory in states like Michigan, Pennsylvania, Nevada, North Carolina, Texas, and many others. And in order to flex our electoral muscle, South Asians for Biden have led phone banks in many of these battleground states. To date, we have made over 50,000 calls to battleground voters, and we are not letting up. In fact, tonight we are holding a GOTV rally with notable South Asian celebrities and activists, and the event is featuring special guest Maya Harris. We are South Asians, and we stand united in support of Vice President Biden and Senator Harris. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Deepa. Next up, we have Isha Yuki with Pakistanis for Biden.
Good afternoon, Assalamu alaikum, and may peace be upon you all. My name is Aisha Yuki, and I'm the National Communications Director for Pakistanis for Biden. Our mission is to engage and mobilize the Pakistani American community nationwide in this historic election, to get out the vote, to reject the politics of divisiveness and fear, and to ensure we bring true leadership to the White House by electing Joe Biden as our 46th President of the United States. Pakistani Americans are a vibrant community and an integral part of the South Asian diaspora within the US that have consistently called for strong, progressive leadership on all levels of government, especially now in the wake of the historic Biden-Harris ticket. In 2015, Vice President Biden was actually awarded the Hilal-e-Pakistan, Pakistan's top civilian award, for the role he played in contributing to democracy and social economic development in Pakistan. Biden has also pledged to end the Muslim ban upon coming into office, and he actually referenced it again in last night's debate. In our faith, Muslims believe heaven lies at the feet of their mother. For Trump to respond with a simple good in the final debate when Biden called out his administration for being responsible for 500 plus immigrant children being separated at the border goes against everything that not only our tradition, but what our American values and traditions stand for. What our community and our nation needs are candidates who exemplify the qualities of leadership. And we believe Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are the natural leaders who will represent all citizens of the United States, all immigrant communities, and deliver our nation through the unprecedented challenges we face in the absence of leadership. Our council believes the diverse experiences and commitment to fair leadership modeled by the candidates on this ticket speaks to the experiences of the Pakistani American immigrant community across the nation. And to reach our objectives, we have created an engaging digital campaign and built a strong virtual presence within the Pakistani American community by collaborating with leaders in strategic states, by mobilizing through virtual platforms and strategic WhatsApp collaborations with over 800 Pakistani Americans from key battleground states, and of course, engaging with our media partners. Pakistani Americans are actually going to the polls this weekend, October 23rd through October 25th, to vote early and elect Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. And we are hosting a virtual battleground rally this Sunday featuring comedy, poetry, and politics. And I'll drop the link in the chat. Thank you to all the AAPI leaders for mobilizing our community in this historic election. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next up, Sikh Americans for Biden, we have Ikasa Suri.
Thanks, Howard. Hello, everyone. It's nice to see you all. My name is Ikasa, and I'm the Associate Director of Sikh Americans for Biden. Before I started, I just wanted to thank everyone on this call, including Amit and the other members of AAPIs for Biden for helping us organize this event and supporting us in our endeavors. It is an absolute honor to be able to share the progress of our group, and even more so to hear about the incredible and amazing things every single group on this call has been doing. Starting with what we've been doing and kind of why I'm here today to share our progress. These past 4 years have been undeniably difficult for our community. We have seen bullying against Sikh American students in schools rise more than 200% under the Trump administration. We have seen hate crimes against our turban-donning brothers and sisters rise multiple fold. We have seen so many of our uncles and aunties, small businesses struggle and even collapse under what has been a horrendous response to the coronavirus. We have seen so many of our Sikhs caged in abhorrent conditions in ICE detention centers. And we have seen our president deny the science behind why our homeland, Sarda Punjab, is no longer the land of 5 rivers. And just last night, as was mentioned by Deepa, we heard our sitting president call our homeland, the land in which our ancestors have fought and lived, have cultivated farms and raised families, our families. He called it filthy. And that's why we formed our organization, Sikh Americans for Biden, to give Sikh Americans a unique voice on a campaign for one of the first times in the history of a major presidential election, and elevate the voices of our siblings across the country. Over the past few months, we have phone banked to Sikhs across battleground states, including Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Texas. We've hosted a number of different events on issues ranging from anti-Sikh discrimination to international human rights and immigration reform. We've heard from our community members, including Valerie Kaur, Mayor Bella, Simranjit Singh, and so many others, all telling us the same thing. Our voice does matter. We owe it to our parents who left everything they knew to come here and provide us with a better life, to choose the right candidate. The candidate that will support affordable healthcare, who will protect our gurdwaras, who will support small business stimulation, who will support affordable healthcare for our parents and our aging community members, who will support reasonable religious accommodations to prevent workplace discrimination. That candidate is undeniably Vice President Biden and Senator Harris. And we need you to vote as well, because quite literally, our lives depend on it. Waheguru Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Thank you so much. Next up, we have South Asian Women for Biden, Nina Anand.
Hi, everyone, and thank you, Howard and AAPIs for Biden for everything you're doing for all of us. South Asian Women for Biden was started in September when Women for Biden came to us and said that there was a unique opportunity to start an affinity group working on South Asian women due to Kamala's heritage and the power of this election to get the first woman of South Asian descent elected to the White House. South Asian women have historically not been as politically involved in US politics. We decided that now was the time to change that. I was proud to join this movement, being half Indian myself, starting my career working in women's policy on the Hill and working in US-India relations for the past few years. In March, I started a new job, which I lost in August. I know I'm not alone, as I'm only one of the 12.6 million unemployed Americans. We have to make a change, and the time is now. South Asian Women for Biden is a group of South Asian women and their allies focused on getting out the vote and providing resources, information, and a community for South Asian women across the country to elect Biden-Harris on November 3rd through phone banking and battleground state activism. We'll be hosting an upcoming battleground phone bank with Reshma Sajani, CEO of Girls Who Code, on October 26th at 6:00 p.m., and we'd love for you to join us. Next week, we'll also be joining South Asian women across the country who will highlight why they are voting Biden-Harris, indicating what's on the line this election for them through our digital toolkit for social media, which is available on our website. We all know what's on the line this year and are excited to elect champions who will represent the interests of diverse groups like ourselves and all of you here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next up, we have AAPI staffers for Biden. Liz Lee.
Thank you, Howard, and thank you to AAPIs for Biden for assembling all of us here, as well as this presser. Hello, everyone. My name is Liz Rangojava. I am one of the 4 co-chairs for AAPI staffers for Biden. My colleagues who could not make it today are Mo Sharma, Alice Lin, and Dao Win. Together, the 4 of us represent the diverse AAPI staffers who have committed their time to public service, which for some of us means mainly in DC. Our commitment to Team Joe and Team Kamala is because, as you guys have seen, this campaign has been incredibly committed to building a diverse and inclusive coalition. So, you know, as politicos in our day jobs, you know, our group of volunteers understands that the AAPI electorate, our communities, can bring Joe and Kamala over the finish line. And that is why we've come together to phone bank and organize. So everyone here saw last night that Vice President Joe Biden is ready to lead our country and build us back better. Let's go out there, vote early, and win this. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. Next up, we have Taiwanese Americans for Biden, Amy Fan.
Thank you, Howard. My name is Amy Fan. I'm a co-chair of Taiwanese Americans for Biden. Supporting the Biden-Harris ticket is an easy choice for Taiwanese American voters. Vice President Joe Biden and Senator Kamala Harris are thoughtful and compassionate leaders who are committed to ensuring that every member of the AAPI community is treated with dignity, no matter their race, ethnicity, or even the party they voted for, and has a fair shot at the American dream. In stark contrast with President Trump, Biden and Harris have proven track records on ensuring affordable healthcare for all Americans, combating discrimination against AAPIs, protecting the rights of immigrants and minority groups, fostering economic opportunity, and defending democracy both at home and abroad. It is no wonder that leading AAPI activists and artists of Taiwanese descent, like Andrew Yang, Constance Wu, Hudson Yang, Jason Wu, and Lin Chen, are outspoken Biden-Harris supporters. Taiwanese Americans with family across the Pacific can also put their trust in Joe Biden, who is committed to deepening ties with Taiwan, a leading democracy, major economy, and technology powerhouse. Taiwan's impeccable response to the COVID-19 pandemic stands in contrast that could not be more drastic to the immense failures of this current administration. Joe Biden will listen to the experts and scientists and make sure that America overcomes this pandemic as Taiwan has done, and make sure we as a country would build back better. Tomorrow, we are proud to hold a National Day of Action that will see Taiwanese Americans come together to host and join AAPI Get Out the Vote events all over the country to elect Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and ensure a better future for Taiwanese Americans, AAPIs, and all Americans. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Thai Americans for Biden, Jerry. Hey, Jerry, I think you're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Sounds good.
Sawadee krap. My name's Jerry Ray, but I'm the co-chair for Thai Americans for Biden. During this election, it's so critically important that we try to get Thai Americans to be mobilized and more politically engaged and to vote for Joe Biden. We've seen the effects of this pandemic in our community, on the Thai American community, especially on the Thai American community in Los Angeles and Las Vegas. Many of them work in the service industry. They've been laid off because of the COVID-19 pandemic, and many of them are struggling economically and financially to make ends meet. Many Thai Americans come here for the American dream, for a better life, but because of this pandemic, it has made it very difficult for them to succeed in this economy and to achieve that American dream. I was personally laid off in April because of the pandemic, and my mother is an elderly Thai woman. She came here for the American dream, and she is one of the high-risk individuals for COVID-19. And my brother, unfortunately, has contracted COVID-19. So I personally know the effects of this pandemic on my community, on my family. And Donald Trump, in this moment, is trying to take away healthcare for Asian Americans. He's trying to sabotage the healthcare of Asian American and Pacific Islanders, which are 1.3 more times likely to be hospitalized from COVID-19 than Caucasian Americans. So it's so important that we try to get Thai Americans and other Asian Americans to vote because healthcare is on the ballot, as you know. And also housing is a big issue here, especially in California. We've seen many people struggling to pay rent, struggling to pay their mortgage, and Trump doesn't have a plan to really alleviate the burdens of Asian American families. But we know Joe Biden and Kamala Harris has a plan for healthcare and housing. Joe Biden has a plan that will allow Americans to opt into public option, and he has a plan that will allow a tax credit for first-time Asian Americans home buyers. So we need to get out the vote for Thai Americans. So it's critically important that we make our voices heard so that Thai Americans and other Southeast Asian Americans have a seat at the table. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jerry. Next up, we have Queer AAPIs, Lonnie Ko.
Hi, everybody. Before I start, I want to thank Ahmet, Howard, and Hannah for gathering everyone here today for such an important event. I want to especially thank Congresswoman Judy Chu, Congresswoman Grace Meng, and DNC AAPI Caucus Chair Bel for being such tent poles in our AAPI community. Without your leadership, the community would not be where it is today. And for that, I'm truly thankful. As I mentioned, my name is Lonnie Ko, and I'm one of the co-chairs for the LGBTQ and AAPIs for Biden Affinity Group, Q&A for short. This affinity group is truly the embodiment of so much of America, the Biden campaign, and the AAPI community. America is built on intersectionality, and the Biden campaign has the first Black, AAPI, and female VP candidate. And AAPIs by definition are Asian and American. The Q&A community is impacted by LGBTQ equality and xenophobic rhetoric, so it's clear that we have a lot at stake. Since many of the leaders on this call have already discussed the impact of Trump's xenophobic rhetoric, I'll briefly talk about LGBT equality and my family's story of the American dream. Currently, marriage equality is law of the land, and we have LGBTQ workplace protections, but we know that equality only became law of the land because people fought for it. Based upon Trump's most recent Supreme Court nomination of Amy Coney Barrett, we understand that we cannot take these rights for granted. The LGBTQ community's right to love equally is at stake, and we know that we have to fight. Now, I want to share a personal story beyond the normal top lines. My family and I came to America as immigrants, and my parents didn't graduate high school in Hong Kong, nor did they attend school in America. When they came here, we had hopes of achieving the American dream. We first bought a sushi restaurant, that failed. We sold P.O. boxes, candles, gift wrapping services, and many of those ideas fell short, but we kept pushing on. Eventually, we had a breakthrough in our finances through a number of tax incentives and SBA loan programs during the Obama-Biden administration. And we were finally able to achieve our American dream of owning our own warehouse. Our business is actively involved with our local community, city, county, and we engage with a number of national businesses and nonprofit organizations. And through that, we have seen firsthand the negative economic impacts of coronavirus. A lot of our friends' shops have had to close up, unable to pay rent, not knowing whether their businesses will ever open again. People are hurting, small businesses are hurting, and this is not okay. We need leadership that will get a handle of coronavirus and has a plan to spark entrepreneurship and small business growth in AAPI communities. My family is living proof that good policies and competent leadership matters. And good policies mean love is love and small businesses thrive. Because of my family's story and all the different communities that I am part of, the Q&A community are all in for Biden and Harris. For our group's launch, we were joined by Margaret Cho, Congressman Mark Takano, Lieutenant Governor Tenorio, Georgia State Rep Sam Park, and California Assemblymember Evan Lowe to talk about what's at stake at this election. We have visible members of our community across government, entertainment, and many other industries, and we are using our platform to affect change. So let's build back better. And the best part is we're just getting started. So thank you, and please get out the vote.
Thank you, Lonnie. Next up, we have Grace Choi with Korean Americans for Biden.
Hi, thank you so much, Howard and Amit and Bel and Congresswoman Grace Meng and Congresswoman Judy Chu, and of course, our amazing Korean American leader, Hannah Kim, for convening us. And to join all of you amazing Asian American and Pacific Islander leaders from all different backgrounds across the country. Grace Choi from Korean Americans for Biden. We have, who's not here on the screen today, Julia Chun, Steve King, Jean Kim, Linda Shiv, and Laura Shin. We have our own mini, I guess, Avengers within Korean Americans for Biden. We're excited to share as well that Korean Americans for Biden, we had our, earlier this month, we had our first national press conference where we had over 350 Korean American leaders from politics, entertainment, nonprofit, the private sector endorse Joe Biden for president and Kamala Harris for VP. And every week we have phone banks into the swing states because we know we are the margin of victory. We've had it in Georgia twice because we know it's a battleground state, in Texas, Pennsylvania, Virginia, and just yesterday, Wisconsin, and we'll hit up Nevada and North Carolina next. And so we're really excited to join everyone else to continue to support Biden and Harris leading up to the next 11 days. And for the Korean American community, we know that Joe Biden really is the right choice for our community, because not only does he fight out against the anti-Asian, anti-Chinese rhetoric and hate crimes that have led to the scapegoating of our community, but he's also been such a great supporter of small businesses through COVID-19, and we know how it's really affected the Korean American small businesses. He's an advocate and supporter of our healthcare to make sure we have the best options possible that are affordable. Korean Americans, as you all know, are also, unfortunately, the highest uninsured community, not only in the Asian community, but throughout the country. And so this is incredibly important. And lastly, our folks are so tied to the Korean Peninsula, so we do care about what's happening in the homeland. And so the US ROK, or Republic of Korea alliance, is incredibly important to us. And we know that Joe Biden, since he was on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, his first trip to Asia included South Korea, and he knows how important that relationship is in the East Asia Pacific area to just good alliance building and democracy building within the East. And so we appreciate Joe Biden's support on North Korea and the Korean Peninsula as well, to denuclearize the Korean Peninsula, fight for stability and peace, and last but not least, to advocate for human rights with the dignity of the North Korean people who are suffering under the dictatorship. And so these are all the reasons why Korean Americans all across the country support Joe Biden. And last but not least, we know that Joe Biden is a man of faith, and his faith allows him to make decisions that are of compassion, integrity, and what is upright and good and respectful. And so that's why we know that a lot of Korean Americans who are on the fence, who are independents, and even Republicans will and have been supporting Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. So thank you so much for the opportunity to share why Korean Americans are all out and ready to go for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris.
Thank you, Grace. Next up, we have Wong Palosa with AAPI Veterans and Military Families for Biden.
Thank you, Howard, Ahmed, and the whole entire team. Thank you so much for bringing all of us together. My name is Juan Paloso, co-chair of AAPI Veterans and Military Families for Biden. I am Chinese immigrant, a Navy veteran, a spouse of a military veteran, niece of a refugee, and a New Yorker. Ravi Shankari is the founder of our group. He is a retired U.S. Air Force colonel and also the former chair of the White House Initiative on AAPI. We have supported phone banking swing states, and a number of our leadership council members are among the 850 national security leaders who have endorsed Biden for president. Throughout our nation's history, AAPIs have served with pride in the military. Filipino Americans manned defensive batteries at the Battle of New Orleans during the War of 1812. In the U.S. Civil War, Chinese Americans fought at battles of Antietam and Gettysburg. Despite the discriminatory provisions of the Chinese Exclusion Act, Chinese Americans fought under General Pershing in the Mexican expedition in 1916. And during World War I, Indian Americans served honorably in the U.S. Army, and one of them was most decorated in the U.S. history and fought to preserve his rights to wear his turban and brought it up to the Supreme Court. And in World War II, the unit 442 Infantry Regiment and the 110th Infantry Battalion, they were filled with Japanese Americans who were facing internment here at home, and yet they fought for America. And during Korean War and Vietnam War, 4 Asian Americans received the Medal of Honor. One was a POW, and the other 3 made the ultimate sacrifice. AAPIs have served and have proven our loyalty to our country. But under the Trump administration, once again, AAPIs are facing unprecedented discrimination. In 2016, Trump disrespected Gold Star family during that election cycle. And during this election cycle, he is blaming Gold Star families for possibly giving them COVID. His lack of leadership failed to protect Americans from the pandemic. He continues to put our Asian American service member in harm's way as he incites racism that erodes our American values and our military core values. Service members have seen firsthand the negative repercussions of Trump's erratic behavior and dismissiveness towards career military servants and those who are serving in the intel community. For those reasons and many more, Trump is unfit to be our commander-in-chief. As AAPI veterans and military families for Biden, we are voting for Joe to restore the soul of America and to protect the freedom that we have bled for. So thank you all for joining us today, and thank you all for protecting our democracy.
Thank you, Juan. Last but not least, we have Benjamin O with Young Asian Americans for Biden, otherwise known as YASPI.
Hi, everyone. It's a great honor to be with all of you today. I know that we're running a little short on time, so I will try to make this brief. But at Young Asian Americans for Biden, we really know what's at stake in this election. It's not just the rights of our families, our friends, and our communities, but it's our future. The debate last night could not have made the distinctions between that future under a Biden-Harris administration and a Donald Trump administration more clear. We know that Joe will fight for us and our futures, and time and again, he's presented a vision that includes all of us, from social justice and representative government to improving education and addressing climate change. Meanwhile, Trump has no vision for anyone except for himself. He continues to exacerbate anti-AAPI hate crimes, divide our country, and tokenize us at a time when our communities are facing countless challenges, from historic unemployment to suffering small businesses to increasing discrimination. Across all of the affinity groups today, you've heard how diverse and dire the challenges of our communities are under this terrible administration, how deep our history is in this country, and how little the current administration cares. Our Young Asian Americans for Biden team understands all of this. We see it every day. We know that without the significant progress of history, as well as the courage of our parents, grandparents, and sometimes ourselves, we would not be standing with you here today. YASPI, comes from all walks of life, all parts of the country, and we are brought together by dedication to a movement and not a moment. And I know that's why you all are here too. We are dedicated not only to ensuring that young API voices are heard in this election, but also building the future that we believe in on the foundations that our families have built for us together. Because we know that APIs will be the margin of victory this year, and we know that we will only continue to be a greater and greater margin in future elections. The power to leverage that margin lies in our hands. It lies in the hands of young high schoolers who reached out to me because even though they couldn't vote, they wanted to make a difference. It lies in the social media organizers and activists who continue to drive innovative change and stand in solidarity with other communities of color. It lies in all of us who are changing the lives of our peers and people we may never meet by helping them feel heard and represented in this country. We always say that young people are the future. And while that's true, young people are also the present. We're here now making our presence felt and voices heard because we know that the Biden-Harris administration will lead our country into a better, more representative future. They are the leaders that we need in this challenging and daunting time. I'm so proud of the YASPI team, without whom I would not be here with you today, because they have reached thousands and thousands of our peers in states across this country through social media, through events, through phone banks, through text banks, through their own activism and their own leadership. And that's just a microcosmic proof of our power. It's proof that every day, every hour, there are young AAPIs across this country, some of whom can't even vote yet, fighting through the fatigue of schoolwork, college applications, Zoom classes, mental health, and so much more to get Joe Biden and Kamala Harris elected because we believe in a better future for all. We believe in Joe and Kamala, we believe in each other and ourselves, and we will fight the next 11 days, including today and tomorrow's phone banking community events and beyond to make sure our peers and communities believe too. So thank you so much.